my writing journey has been kind of like a lifelong thing, but there have been many detours along the way in order for me to circle back and get here. You know, like I come from Canada. I grew up on the West Coast in British Columbia, and I just spent a lot of my childhood drawing and writing and, you know, making up fan comics and stuff like that. I never wrote fan fiction, but fan comics were my vibe. You know, just like full of binders, like those 3-ring binders, just full of, you know, like just sketched comic books and stuff, and like writing dialogue and all that kind of thing for basically the stuff that I was watching and consuming over the course of my childhood. Be like, I love Captain Underpants. I'm going to draw like a Captain Underpants fan comic, or like Narnia or Lemony Snicket and all these different kinds of things. And yeah, like as I got older, veered more into art, but kind of went back and forth with writing and art related stuff. So it was like, I was really big into art in high school, but then went to university for English literature. And during that time, I was also a music journalist. And then I left Canada and lived in Berlin for 3 years. And while I was in Berlin, I basically got burnt out on music journalism and ended up getting into tattooing. And so I did tattooing for like 6 years. And during that career, I ended up moving to Ecuador, where I live now, with my wife. And basically, like, the pandemic hit and I had to close down my tattoo studio. Nobody really wants a tattoo when there's a pandemic going on. It's not really like, it's not an essential job or an essential expense that you can justify during a time like that.
Right.
And so my son was coming and my wife was pregnant, so my son was on the way, and I had to close down my tattoo studio. And I was like, what am I going to do with my time now? You know, like during lockdowns and all that stuff. And I just started writing again. I started illustrating a ton and world building and basically like laying the foundations for what would become the Fungal Verse. And Mushroom Blues is the first book in this shared universe. And so I just really started to take it more seriously. This is probably five years ago, more or less.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so it sounds like you suffer from the same disease that I have, and my wife calls it creative ADD.
Yeah,
where just any creative thing, I just kind of like, oh, that'd be fun to try. You know.
Yeah. And then you dive into it, and it's like 6 years go by. You know.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not like that ADD if I spend 6 years on it, but like I can still tattoo, and I do if I have the opportunity, but I'm not like earning full-time money off of it or anything like that. But yeah, it's like things just catch your eye. It's like a crow seeing something shiny, but it's like your brain seeing some creative opportunity and just kind of kind of urging you to explore it as much as you can.
Yeah. I started, so I'm a musician originally, is what I kind of grew up doing and was forever. And then writing became after, my wife and I have been married for quite a long time. But after we had our daughter, she's 9 now, but I kind of got out of like, I can't really make a living doing this gigging thing. I don't really have the time for it. What do I do? And so as a creative outlet, I kind of turned to writing. Like, it's something I could do at home while I'm sitting in a chair holding the baby, you know, doing stuff. And so that's kind of where that happened for me. But yeah, I get it, you know, just kind of transitioning those creative fields as they come.
Yeah, I mean, it's like pivoting based on the circumstances of life. And the way that you describe writing, it's like, yeah, you got a baby in your lap, but I'm not just not gonna sit there and like do nothing, you know. I'm gonna do something with that time. And even if it's like hastily writing something that turns out to be like okay, then that's still something, and I can rework that when my brain is in a moment where I can put more thought into the quality of that particular thing. But still, to be able to get those ideas out there is really beneficial. You know, it's like just being a parent doesn't necessitate restricting your possibilities. It's like all of that is in your own head, basically, like those barriers that you put up for yourself based on what you think a situation will deny you. And it's like, no, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can navigate that, and it's not going to be like happy-go-lucky, super amazing every single time you do something, but at the very least you're doing something and it makes you happy, and there's benefit in committing to that.
I think I agree with you. One of the things I have always said and thought was, and this is maybe a whole nother discussion, but parenting is one of those things where, especially as a creative, I feel like you have to navigate it. But when you have to accept that you're a parent, otherwise you'll never be happy being a parent.
Yeah,
because there's so many, there's so many people out there be like, "Oh, your life ends when you become a parent." I'm like, I don't think so. It's been one of the best things ever, and I think it's important for your kids to watch you be creative, so they learn to be creative. So why would you stop doing that?
Yeah,
and like deny them the ability to see you do something like that.
Right, and then obviously it's a generalization, but I can see a lot of that in prior generations where they, especially when it was more like, oh, housewife was more the norm, and there was kind of like a more sort of expected division of labor in terms of like a family unit and that kind of thing. But it's like, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and obviously living somewhere like South America, there's a bit of like, not necessarily from people in our generation. Like, all my friends are totally cool with it, and people who have kids are dividing their time between each other, not necessarily like the man goes to work and the wife is at home and taking care of the kids and cooking and blah blah blah. But I can see it in prior generations where it's like there's like a sense that having a family means sacrificing the things that fulfill you as an individual. And that's probably been one of my biggest struggles as a parent, is kind of navigating the murky waters of parenting, because there's just so much there's so much unexpected stuff that happens. There's like days that can go from super calm to incredibly chaotic in an instant. And just kind of navigating that and figuring out like, how can I sustain myself creatively, which fuels me as a person and makes me happier as an individual, which in turn makes me a better father because I feel more balanced and more eager to do certain things with my kids and with my family based on the fact that I'm also able to nurture the things that I love on a personal level. And so it's like, I think those things feed into each other. And if you just end up sacrificing like an entire part of your life, then that kind of festers as a sort of resentment, and that can end up being dumped on your kids too. So it's like, why not make time for yourself in order to be happy and figure out how to do it based on your lifestyle and circumstances, such that you are at least pursuing some fulfillment as an individual, such that that trickles into the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's kind of that idea of being a whole person, and like it's like, exercising is a great example of like, you got to do something. Like, you have to take the time, even if other people need you, even if other people whatever, you got to do a little bit of exercising just to take care of yourself, because it makes you a better person for the people who care, that rely on you. And
like I'll just like take some free weights into the backyard, like on the grass, and do exercises there. And my sons are like just literally crawling over me and like, thinking it's a game.
It's just a weighted vest. It's just added weight,
exactly, right? Dude, exactly. I'm just gonna like do lunges around the yard with like a kid in my arms, and it's like wearing a weighted vest. It's perfect. Yeah. But at the very least, it's like, those are the kinds of things that it's like, A, it sets an example for them. B, it's part of the betterment of you as a person. And in turn, it's like your fulfillment is going to reflect upon how you interact with your family, and they're going to see you as this person who's doing the things that they love to do. And
Yeah.
so when they get older, they're going to be like, yeah, I want to do the things that I love too. I don't want to just like pigeonhole myself based on X, Y, and Z. It's like, Dad did this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go, you know?
Yeah.